The observation deck of the Galactic Council station hung above Saturn, like a silver eye watching the galaxy below Captain Jake. Mitchell stood with his hands pressed against the cool reinforced glass, watching the swirling storms of gas that made up Saturn's atmosphere. The lights from 1,000 alien ships orbited the gas giant, each one representing a civilization that had mastered space travel thousands of years ago behind him. Ambassador Daniel adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform for the 100th time in the past hour. His hand shook slightly as he reviewed the presentation materials spread across the table. The young ambassador had worked for months on the speech that would finally bring humanity into the galactic community as equals. Nations across Earth had united their resources to create this moment. The entire planet had watched as humanity's first official representatives traveled to the Galactic Council station. Captain Jake turned from the window. His eyes were sharp and intelligent, and he carried the bearing of a military man who had spent his entire career preparing for first contact with alien life. The Federation Council was waiting. Captain Jake knew that the next few hours would determine humanity's place in the galaxy for the next 100 years or more. Admiral Lisa Blackwell entered the observation room with quick, efficient steps. She was a tactical officer with silver streaked through her dark hair and a mind that never stopped analyzing patterns. She placed a tablet on the table in front of Daniel and pulled up the latest information about the council. Members, look at these profiles, Daniel said. Lisa gesturing to the faces displayed on the screen. The council has 7 members, and they have made it clear that they view humanity as an interesting experiment and nothing more. The eldest is Vorn, a member of the Kelveron race. He has opposed human membership since the beginning. Vorn was tall in his species standard, with scaled blue skin and eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. His civilization had achieved space travel over 2,000 years ago. The Keltheran had expanded their influence across 3 galactic sectors, and they had never shown any interest in learning from younger species. Jake nodded slowly. He had read the intelligence reports Ambassador Daniel had prepared for the past year. Humanity had achieved interstellar travel only 50 years ago. In the context of galactic history, humans were infants. Lisa and Jake both understood what that meant. They were walking into a room full of beings who had forgotten more about advanced technology than humanity had ever discovered. The chamber doors opened and an escort drone appeared. The metallic sphere pulsed with soft blue light, signaling that it was time. Daniel took a deep breath and stood to his feet as the drone hovered near him. Jake placed a steady hand on the young man's shoulder. You represent Earth today, Jake said in a quiet voice. Make us proud. The journey through the station's corridors with surreal alien beings of every description moved through the hallways. Some floated on gravitational fields. Some had tentacles that moved with intelligent purpose. Some appeared to be made partially of energy contained within shimmering force fields. Daniel had studied all of this in preparation, but nothing could truly prepare a human for the reality of meeting so many advanced alien species at once. The council chamber was vast and circular, with tiered seating arranged around a central platform. The 7 council members watched as Daniel approached. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then Vorn leaned forward, and his mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. Another primitive species comes to ask for our blessing, Vorn said, his voice carrying across the chamber with amplified force. A gasp went through the assembled observers. The other council members showed no reaction, though some seemed amused. I suggest we make this brief. Daniel stood tall, and he began his presentation. The words he had rehearsed came out clearly. He spoke about humanity's achievements faster than light travel, advanced medicine, the capacity for great art, and philosophy. He spoke about Earth's cultures and languages and the human capacity for cooperation and peace. He spoke about the dreams that drove humanity forward. The council members listened without interrupting when Daniel finished. The chamber remained silent for several long seconds. Then Vorn began to laugh. The sound was harsh and grating. A second council member, a being made of crystalline structures that caught the light, also began to laugh. Your species requires breathing apparatus at its current technological level, yet you speak of philosophy? Vorn asked. The very concept is laughable. You have not even fully unified your own planet. Tell me, young human, why should we grant you access to the protected space routes when your military vessels would be obsolete before they left your system's outer boundary? Daniel's face reddened, but he maintained his composure. Sir, humanity has, you have nothing that interests us. Vorn interrupted. We do not need raw materials from your world. We do not need your technology. We do not need your culture. We have thrived perfectly well for millennia without you. And we will continue to thrive long after your species either joins us as permanent servants or destroys itself in primitive conflict. The Crystalline Council member added, I propose we restrict human expansion, entirely keep them on their world for another 1,000 years or so. By then, perhaps they will have developed enough intelligence to conduct themselves properly in civilized space. The council voted immediately. Vorn's proposal passed with 5 votes in favor, the 2 abstaining. Members simply did not care enough to object. Humanity had been rejected not just as equals, but as primitive creatures who needed to be contained. Jake watched from the observation area as Daniel returned, his shoulders bent under the weight of failure. The young ambassador's face was pale as he retold what had happened in the chamber. Jake listened and felt something cold harden in his chest. He had prepared for many outcomes during his career as a military officer, but somehow he had hoped that intelligence and reason would prevail among the council members back in their quarters on the station. Captain Jake made a coded transmission to General Kevin Hayes on Earth. The message was brief and contained only a few words. The message simply stated, they laughed. Execute protocol. Endeavor. Humanity had prepared for this possibility, though they had hoped it would never be necessary. Earth had hidden far more than any alien power suspected. Captain Jake looked out at the galactic community beyond the station walls, and a slight smile appeared on his face. Let them laugh, Jake whispered to himself. They have no idea what they just awakened. The underground facility was hidden 2 kilometers beneath the Arctic ice, accessible only through a series of tunnels that had taken 20 years to excavate in complete secrecy. General Kevin Hayes stood in the command center and watched holographic displays showing the status of 5 massive warships hidden in separate locations across the planet. Each ship represented the pinnacle of human engineering and innovation, born from decades of focused research and development. The government had hidden these vessels from the entire world, even from most of humanity's leaders. When the message from Jake arrived, Hayes immediately activated the next phase of Operation Endeavor. The doors to the main briefing room opened and officers filed in, each one carrying security clearances higher than any government official except for the President of the United Nations. The weight of what was about to happen hung heavy in the air. Gentlemen and ladies, Hayes began, his voice steady and commanding. The time has come to reveal what Earth has truly become. The Galactic Council has made their choice. They have mocked us and dismissed us as children playing with toys, but they are about to learn a lesson that will reshape galactic politics forever. Captain Jake Mitchell appeared on the communication screen, transmitted from a secure relay station. The connection was perfect despite the vast distance. Jake nodded to Hayes and said, the false fleet can be abandoned now, General. The Council already thinks they know everything about human capabilities. They believe they have seen our best, and they have judged us inferior. This works perfectly in our favor. Engineer Rachel Morris entered the room carrying a datapad that contained the technical specifications of the true fleet. She was a woman who had dedicated her entire adult life to the secret project. Her hands trembled slightly as she displayed the first ship on the holographic projector. This is USS Resolute, she announced. The ship measures 800 meters in length and contains advanced shield systems that can withstand impacts from any known weapon system in the galaxy. The crew will number 350 highly trained personnel. She brought up the next ship, USS Defiant, a vessel designed specifically for rapid response and aggressive tactical operations. The third ship, USS Valiant, represented humanity's commitment to protecting scientific research and exploration. The fourth ship, USS Liberty, was built as a diplomatic vessel, but retained the capability to fight with the best of them. The final ship, USS Endeavour, was the flagship. USS Endeavour is larger than the others. Rachel explained. She has enhanced computing systems and can coordinate with the other 4 ships across vast distances. The artificial intelligence systems aboard each vessel are fully autonomous and capable of making strategic decisions in real time. Dr. Aaron Stone, the head scientist for the entire operation, stepped forward. He was an older man with intense eyes and a mind that had solved countless technical problems during the development of the fleet. The young minds of Earth have accomplished things that should have taken centuries. He said, I am proud of what this nation and this planet have achieved in secrecy while the galaxy laughed at us. General Hayes pulled up intelligence reports on the display showing the location of each ship. The first, he said, is stationed in the Mariana Trench, where the extreme pressure and electromagnetic activity hide its signature completely. The second is beneath the ice of Antarctica. The third is hidden in an underground cavern system in the Rocky Mountains. The fourth is in the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean. And the flagship, the Endeavour, is concealed in a specially constructed facility beneath the Sahara Desert. Each location was chosen for specific reasons. The oceans provided natural shielding. The mountains and deserts offered protection through the bulk of Earth's geology. Each ship was capable of independent operation, but together they formed an unstoppable force. Jake appeared increasingly frustrated on the screen. General, we need to begin the movement protocols. My sources in the Galactic Council indicate that they plan to move forward with their isolationist policy and may even impose physical barriers around our system to contain us. This cannot happen. Hayes nodded. I understand, Captain. The Council's arrogance has sealed their fate. They had a choice, and they chose ridicule instead of respect. These 5 ships represent something far more valuable than advanced technology. They represent human determination and the innovation that comes from adversity. They represent the will of an entire species to overcome impossible odds over the next hour. The briefing covered every aspect of the operational plan. The 5 ships would remain hidden for now, but would be positioned to respond if humanity was threatened. The crew members had trained in secret bases hidden across the globe. They knew about the fleet, but understood the critical importance of secrecy. The burden of knowledge had weighed on them, but they understood they carried the future of human expansion into the galaxy. Rachel Morris showed tactical simulations of the fleet in combat. The simulations were impressive, demonstrating that the 5 ships could defeat the combined fleets of most galactic powers in direct combat. The AI systems would compensate for any weaknesses. The human crews would provide the strategic creativity that no alien civilization had developed. Dr. Stone added that the true advantage of the fleet was not in raw firepower, but in the concept behind the design. Every system was redundant. Every weapon had a backup. Every shield had an alternative method of protection. These were ships designed not just for victory, but for survival against overwhelming odds. Captain Jake said from the communication screen, what impresses me most about these vessels is that they do not represent humanity's desire for conquest. They represent our desire to protect our world, our people, and our colonies. They are defensive in nature, but offensive in capability. That distinction is important. General Hayes concluded the briefing with words that would later be remembered throughout human history. The Council mocked us because they could not see our true strength. They judged us by the false fleet they were permitted to see. They made assumptions based on primitive measurements of achievement, but humanity has never been about what we have. We have always been about what we are willing to do to survive and protect those we love. These 5 ships are not our greatest achievement. Our greatest achievement is the spirit that built them in secret while the galaxy laughed. The ships are simply the expression of that spirit made manifest in steel and light. As the officers filed out of the briefing room, the implications were becoming clear to everyone. The age of human inferiority was ending. The age of human equality was about to begin. And when the moment came to reveal the true fleet, the Galactic Council would understand that they had made a catastrophic mistake. The colony on Kepler Prime had been established 8 years earlier as humanity's first major settlement outside the solar system. The planet was rich with mineral resources and had a breathable atmosphere. The population had grown to 50,000 men, women, and children who had come to build a new home for their family's colony director. Emma Foster was a woman of 42 years who had accepted the job, knowing that she would help shape the future of human expansion. The attack came without warning. The alien invasion force arrived at Kepler Prime with overwhelming power. The invaders were soldiers of a warlord named Ketch, a being from a species that had terrorized the outer regions of the galaxy for decades. Ketch had been subsidized by Council member Vorn, who believed that by allowing the destruction of Kepler Prime, humanity would be sufficiently humbled and deterred from future expansion attempts. Emma received the alert at 3 in the morning local time. The colony's defense grid came online, but the invaders simply overpowered it with brute force. The alien ships descended on the settlement with weapons that lit the night sky on fire. Emma evacuated the government center and moved to the underground bunker with essential personnel. But already she knew that the colony's military forces would not be able to hold for long. She sent a distress signal to Earth on all channels. Commander, we are under attack by an unknown alien force. The colony shields are failing. We have 50,000 civilians who need evacuation. Can anyone hear us? Is anyone coming to help? The answer from Earth came back within minutes, but it was not encouraging. The nearest Earth military vessel was stationed in a different system. 3 weeks of travel away, even at maximum speed. Emma felt her heart sink as she realized the horrible truth. Humanity could not reach Kepler Prime in time to save it. In the Galactic Council chambers, Council member Vorn received regular updates on the invasion. Vorn watched with satisfaction as the human colony's defenses crumbled. He had succeeded in his plan. Now humanity would understand that the galaxy was a harsh place, and that small emerging species like humans needed to know their place. Another council member, the crystalline being named Sesh, commented on the invasion with cold indifference. This is exactly what humanity needed. Sesh said such a harsh lesson might prevent them from wasting our time with further requests for integration. The colony's military commander, Colonel Marcus Webb, stood in the center of the command bunker, watching tactical displays as sections of the colony burned above. The invasion force was massive and vastly superior in firepower, but Webb had fought in situations where humans were outnumbered before. His job was to buy time for the civilians to escape. Sir, one of his officers reported, evacuation shuttles have launched from all sectors, but the invaders are moving fast. They are engaging civilian transport vessels. Webb made a decision that would become heroic in human history. He would consolidate the remaining military forces and create a defensive line that would hold the invaders back long enough for more civilians to escape. This would likely mean his death and the death of everyone who fought with him, but it would save families and children. Emma Foster coordinated the evacuation from the bunker. She watched the numbers tick upward on her display. 50% of the civilian population evacuated, 60%, 70%, but the invaders were moving toward the bunker. Now, cutting off more evacuation routes on Earth. General Hayes made a decision the moment he received Emma's first distress signal. He did not wait for approval. He did not call for council meetings. He understood that people were dying right now and that every moment mattered. He activated Operation Endeavor immediately. 5 hidden ships began to move beneath the ice of Antarctica. Enormous doors opened, and a massive vessel rose into the sky. The USS Resolute erupted from its hidden base with engines burning bright for the first time in its existence. In rapid succession, the other 4 ships emerged from their hiding places. The journey from Earth to Kepler Prime was a distance that should have taken months or years. But the human fleet moved through space at speeds that would have seemed like science fiction to the Galactic Council. The ships cut through the void using technology that had been developed in absolute secrecy. The faster-than-light drives created a shimmering distortion around each vessel. Captain Jake Mitchell commanded from the bridge of USS Endeavor, the flagship's artificial intelligence system, named ARIA, provided constant tactical updates. All ships are maximum velocity approaching Kepler Prime. ARIA reported, "We will arrive in position in 4 hours and 37 minutes. Back on Kepler Prime." The situation was becoming desperate. Colonel Webb's forces had been pushed into the final defensive positions around the colony. The invaders were preparing for the final assault. Emma Foster watched from the bunker as more than 90% of the civilian population had successfully evacuated, but thousands of people were still in the colony, either in military positions or unable to reach the evacuation shuttles. Emma made a broadcast to the remaining people on the planet. "We've sent a distress signal to Earth, and I have faith that help will come." She said, "Do not lose hope. Hold on. Do not surrender. Do not give up on tomorrow, because we are the people of Earth, and we do not surrender." The invaders launched their final assault. A massive wave of alien soldiers moved against the human positions, but Colonel Webb's forces held. The humans fought with discipline and courage, understanding that their job was to survive long enough for help to arrive in space. The human fleet approached Kepler Prime like an avenging force. Captain Jake received real-time information from the planet below. He could see the fires burning. On the surface, he could see the invading forces massed for their final attack, and he felt the weight of command on his shoulders. ARIA announced calmly, "All enemy forces are currently concentrated on the colony surface. Captain, all targets are clearly visible on our scans. The invasion fleet is in orbit above the planet, but they are not expecting hostile action from an external force." Captain Jake took a deep breath and gave the order that would announce humanity's arrival to the galaxy. "Break orbit and move to intercept the enemy fleet. All weapons online. All shields to maximum. Humanity has come home." The human ships emerged from faster-than-light space in a perfect tactical formation. The USS Endeavor, USS Resolute, USS Defiant, USS Valiant, and USS Liberty appeared above Kepler Prime like dark avenging angels. The invading warlords' fleet suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they had not anticipated. Captain Jake's voice boomed across all communication channels. "I am Captain Jake Mitchell of Earth. I command you to cease your attack and withdraw immediately. You have 60 seconds to comply." The warlord Ketch did not recognize the ships or the species commanding them. He laughed and ordered his fleet to engage, but it was the last laugh he would ever make. The Battle of Kepler Prime became the moment when the Galactic Council realized that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. The warlord Ketch's fleet consisted of 20 heavy cruisers and 30 smaller attack vessels. They had invaded countless worlds and never encountered serious resistance. But the 5 human ships were unlike anything they had ever faced. The USS Resolute's weapons came online with a sound that resonated through the ship like the voice of angry gods. The ship's advanced targeting systems locked onto 3 of Ketch's heavy cruisers simultaneously. A single volley of plasma weapons struck with devastating accuracy. The shields of the alien cruisers flared and 3 massive explosions lit up the space above Kepler Prime on the bridge of the USS Endeavour. Captain Jake watched the tactical display as the battle unfolded. The coordinated AI systems of the 5 human ships created a perfect symphony of destruction. But Jake made sure that every shot served a purpose. The goal was not to kill more than necessary, but to convince the enemy to leave as quickly as possible. Ketch screamed orders to his fleet. But his ships could not match the speed and precision of the human vessels. The USS Defiant raked across a line of enemy attack fighters, destroying them with surgical precision. The USS Liberty focused on protecting civilian evacuation routes, using its advanced defensive systems to shield the escape pods that were rising from the planet below. The USS Valiant moved to intercept enemy reinforcements that were trying to reach the colony. The battle lasted only 18 minutes when it ended. The warlord Ketch's fleet was in complete retreat. The invaders were leaving wounded ships in their wake. They were leaving their dead. They were leaving their pride on the space above Kepler Prime. Captain Jake could have pursued them, but he chose not to instead. He turned the full attention of the human fleet to protecting the colony and assisting with final evacuations. Colonel Webb received the order to stand down. His forces stopped fighting and emerged from their defensive positions to see the impossible. The sky above Kepler Prime was filled with human ships. The human military vessels had arrived, and they had defeated the invaders with a power that seemed almost supernatural to the humans who had been fighting a desperate battle only moments before. Emma Foster climbed out of the underground bunker and walked into the light of Kepler Prime's sun. The last evacuation shuttle was just carrying the final families to safety. She looked up at the sky and saw the massive form of a human warship overhead, and tears rolled down her face. She understood in that moment that everything had changed. Captain Jake sent a broad message to the Galactic Council. The message was transmitted on all channels so that every being in the Koleans galaxy could hear it. I am Captain Jake Mitchell of the United Nations Space Forces, commanding the human fleet above Kepler Prime. We have repelled the invasion, we have protected our colony, we have saved our people, and now I wish to speak directly to the Galactic Council about what humanity truly is. The council members received the message in real time. The crystalline being Sesh made a noise that might have been a gasp. Council member Vorn turned pale as he received the notification of the human ships. The other council members sat in shocked silence as they listened to Captain Jake's voice for generations. Jake continued, humanity was told that we were primitive. We were told that we were inferior. We were told that we did not belong in this galaxy. But what you just witnessed above Kepler Prime is only a fraction of what humanity is capable of. We possess technology that rivals your own. We possess courage that exceeds your own. We possess something even more valuable. We possess a will to protect our own that no other species can match. The message continued with Jake explaining that humanity had developed advanced vessels in absolute secrecy while the council mocked them. He explained that the human ships above Kepler Prime were only 5 of a fleet that would eventually grow much larger. He explained that humanity was no longer asking for acceptance, but declaring it as equals or as a power to be respected in the chamber. The council erupted in chaos. Some members demanded immediate military action. Others called for negotiation. Vorn sat quietly, his face unreadable as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. But Captain Jake was not finished. He sent another transmission that showed the specifications of the human ships. He transmitted data on their weapon systems and their shields and their capabilities. The information shocked every military expert in the galactic community. The humans had engineered something extraordinary. Most importantly, Jake concluded in his transmission. I want to emphasize what humanity will never do. We will not conquer other worlds. We will not impose our values on other species. We will not seek dominance through force. We have simply come to defend ourselves and our colonies. We came here today not to invade, but to protect. We repelled an invasion that the Council allowed to happen. We protected civilians, including children, women, and the elderly. And we have shown mercy to our enemies by allowing them to retreat with their lives. These are the values that make humanity strong on the surface of Kepler Prime. Emma Foster watched the data transmission being broadcast across all human channels. She understood what Captain Jake was communicating to the galaxy. He was showing them not just human power, but human character. He was proving that humans were not the monsters that some feared, but were instead beings of honor and courage. General Kevin Hayes watched the same transmission from Earth and nodded to himself. Everything they had worked for, everything they had sacrificed to keep secret, everything they had built in darkness had been worth it. The moment had come and humanity had shown the galaxy what they truly were over the next hours. The human ships carefully assisted with the final evacuation of Kepler Prime. The colony would be rebuilt and protected. The invaders would retreat to report their failure to their master, and everyone in the galaxy would know that humanity was now a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Council called an emergency session, but the council members could not agree on how to respond to humanity. Some wanted war. Others wanted immediate negotiation. Others wanted to study the situation more carefully. Vorn did not speak at all. He sat in his chamber and watched the reports of the human fleet in orbit around Kepler Prime and understood that the age of human insignificance had ended. The message was clear. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now they would have to face the consequences of their mistake. The emergency session of the Galactic Council continued for 12 consecutive hours. The debates were heated, the arguments were fierce. But ultimately, the Council faced a reality that could not be ignored. Humanity possessed military power that was equal to, if not superior to, the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. And more importantly, humanity had demonstrated wisdom in the use of that power. Council member Sesh made the first proposal. He suggested that the Council formally apologize to humanity and invite them into the galactic community as full equals with all the rights and protections that such status implied. The other council members argued against this, but the evidence was too strong. The human fleet had shown extraordinary restraint in the battle above Kepler Prime. They had protected civilians. They had shown honor and victory. Vorn remained silent throughout the debate. His silence was perhaps the most powerful statement he could have made. The council member who had led the push to isolate humanity was now unable to defend his position. He simply sat and watched as the council moved forward without him. The vote took place at midnight Earth time. The Galactic Council officially granted humanity full membership in the galactic community. The vote was unanimous, even though Vorn had abstained. His abstention was itself an acknowledgement of defeat. When the news reached Earth, celebrations broke out across every continent. Humans danced in the streets. They cried with joy. They embraced strangers and friends alike. Earth had been humiliated just days before, but now they stood as equals in the eyes of the galaxy. The burden of inferiority had been lifted and replaced with a sense of possibility. Captain Jake Mitchell sat on the bridge of the USS Endeavor and received congratulations from military leaders across the human government. But Jake did not feel victorious. He felt relieved. He had done his duty. He had protected humanity's interests, and he had shown the galaxy that humans were capable of honor even in the moment of triumph. General Kevin Hayes was promoted to the highest rank the United Nations could offer him, but he did not accept parades or celebrations. Instead, he traveled to Kepler Prime to stand beside Emma Foster and Colonel Marcus Webb and the people who had endured the invasion when they stood together on the colony grounds. Emma turned to General Hayes and said, What you gave us was hope, General. You gave us hope when we had none. You gave us the tools to believe in tomorrow. Hayes nodded, but he corrected her gently. No, Director, it was not I who gave hope. It was humanity itself. Thousands of scientists and engineers and military personnel worked in secret for years to build these ships. They did it because they believed that humanity deserved a future. They did it because they understood that sometimes you must prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. You and Colonel Webb proved that belief right by protecting your people when we needed you to hold the line. The Galactic Council sent its official delegation to Earth 3 weeks later. The delegation consisted of representatives from all 7 member civilizations. They came to observe human culture and to establish formal trade agreements and diplomatic relations. They came to understand this species that had so dramatically emerged from obscurity. Ambassador Daniel received the council delegation this time, and his bearing was completely different from his first appearance before the council. He was no longer desperate for acceptance. He was no longer asking for equality. He simply stated it as fact. Humanity welcomes you to Earth. We hope that this marks the beginning of a new era of cooperation and mutual respect among all species in the galaxy. The council members toured Earth. They visited human cities and saw human art and music and literature. They attended human celebrations and festivals. They observed human families in their homes. They were impressed by the creativity and passion that humans brought to every aspect of life. They began to understand why humanity had been willing to work in secret to build the fleet. They began to understand that humans were not driven by conquest, but by a desire to protect their loved ones and to secure a future for coming generations. Dr. Aaron Stone gave a lecture to the council delegation on the philosophy behind the human fleet design. He explained that every system was built with redundancy because humans believed that life was precious and worth saving. He explained that every weapon was designed to disable rather than destroy, when possible, because humans believed that mercy was more important than vengeance. He explained that every shield and defensive system was built to maximum specification because humans understood that the best protection was one that gave everyone a chance to go home at the end of the day. The most impressive moment came when a young human child approached council member Vorn and looked up at the tall alien being with curiosity. "Why did you laugh at us?" she asked in her innocent voice. "Why did you think we were not smart enough to be your friends?" Vorn had no easy answer to the question. The council member bent down to look at the child and said, "I made a mistake. I judged your species without truly understanding you. I thought that intelligence could only be measured in technology. But I learned that intelligence is also measured in courage and compassion and the willingness to protect others. The humans showed me this, and I am grateful for." The lesson trade routes opened between Earth and the other civilizations. Human scientists began to collaborate with alien researchers on problems that had plagued multiple species for centuries. Human engineers shared their designs and learned new techniques from beings who had thousands of years more experience. Human merchants traveled to distant worlds and brought back goods and knowledge and stories. The 5 warships of the human fleet were no longer instruments of war, but symbols of human potential. They were displayed with pride, but they were never again used in anger. The galaxy learned to respect humanity, not because they feared human weapons, but because they had learned to admire human values. 5 years after the battle of Kepler Prime, the human population in the galaxy had grown to millions. There were colonies on dozens of worlds. There were humans serving in galactic research stations and diplomatic missions and scientific expeditions. There were human schools where young people learned about the galaxy and prepared for futures that their ancestors could never have. Imagine Captain Jake Mitchell retired from active duty and became an ambassador himself. He traveled between worlds and told the story of the true fleet. He explained to young people from dozens of species how his own species had learned true strength comes not from technology, but from the values that guide how technology is used on a quiet evening. Jake stood on the bridge of USS Endeavour one final time with General Kevin Hayes. General, Jake said, when we first heard that the Council had mocked us, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen to humanity. I thought that humiliation would define us, but I was wrong. Humiliation was the best thing that could have happened. We used it to inspire ourselves. We used it to build something extraordinary. We used it to show the galaxy what we are truly made of. General Hayes nodded and placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. That is the human spirit, Jake. That is why our species will continue to grow and expand and achieve great things. Not because we have the best technology or the most powerful weapons, but because we have the ability to turn our pain to purpose. We have the ability to take rejection and transform it into determination. We have the ability to look at an impossible situation and find a way not just to survive, but to thrive. They stood together in silence, watching the stars and understanding that humanity's greatest journey was only beginning. The galaxy had tried to contain them and limit them and keep them small, but humans had refused to accept those limitations. And now the entire galactic community would benefit from the friendship and partnership of a species that had learned through adversity what it truly meant to be strong.